Hey, this is your host Mel, and I welcome you to Where You Listening, an exploration of blackness in the songs we love.
Dice, Villa Mella, naciste de la gente negra que con resistencia ha dejado su huella. Creciste con gente de ingenio que sin privilegios va y se les... ¡Ah! Empieza de nuevo.
Villa Mella, naciste de la gente negra que con resistencia ha dejado su huella. Creciste con gente de ingenio que sin privilegio va y se las ingenia. Sonaron los congos, sonaron los cantos y se oyeron.
Today, we will be listening to Party de Palo by Inka. Where You Listening is a series of the Mixtape Podcast which aims to center the contribution of Black people and culture across Latin America and its diaspora through dance and music. This episode of the series accompanies the single Flow Caribe, which presented an extended interview with the artist Inka, touching on his own style of music as well as on the Black roots of reggaeton. Check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, our YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Today's episode is very special, not just because I'm the host this time, but also because it's the very first time an artist reaches out to us to feature their work in our series. And it is even more special because the reason why they reached out to us is precisely the motivation behind the Were You Listening series, to contextualize meaningful songs that talk about Blackness in the Americas. So let's introduce our artist, Inka. Take it over.
My name is Albrady Holguín, but just like you did, people call me Inka. I come from Villa Mella, I am 22 years old, Dominican Republic to the world. I combine the Dominican folklore of this beautiful country with rap, which is what I am, a rapper, and also with the latest trends in Latin music.
Alright, and what would you say characterizes your music?
Ese sabor.
That Caribbean flavor. Sometimes people say Latin flavor. I tell them, say it correctly, Caribbean flavor. It's not the same. Also rap, lyrics with intention, lyrics that carry a message, I would say. Well, what message? I would say a message of whatever I feel like conveying at that time, and the black essence of the Dominican Republic.
You heard it from DR to the world, so let's get to it. Today's song, Party de Palo, is the first single of Inka's upcoming album, Villa Mella, in which he pays homage to this historically black place in which he grew up in the Dominican Republic. In Party de Palo, Inka invites us to party along to the rhythms of Villa Mella, while he reminds us with his lyrics of the incredible cultural richness that black communities hold. Let's party.
Villa Mella, naciste de la gente negra que con resistencia ha dejado su huella. Creciste con gente de ingenio que sin privilegio va y se las ingenia.
And of course, since we have Inka with us today, he will be reciting the lyrics, his own lyrics, in Spanish. And he will be contextualizing his own song, here in the voice of Andres. I'm just going along for the ride. I will say, though, that you should really appreciate how hard Inka worked to be able to not rap his lyrics. He struggled, y'all, so I really appreciate his reciting.
Villa Mella, naciste de la gente negra que con resistencia ha dejado su huella. Creciste con gente de ingenio que sin privilegios va y se las ingenia.
Villa Mella, you were born from Black people who have left their mark with resistance. You grew with ingenious people who, without any privilege, always find a way.
Bueno, la gente sí, vamos a explicar qué es lo que con Villa Mella.
Okay, let's explain to the listeners what's the deal with Villa Mella. Because when people think about the Dominican Republic, they think about Punta Cana, Samaná, or they think about Santo Domingo, which has its colonial city, the historic downtown, you know. They think about the city. But also in the Dominican Republic is Villa Mella, which is where I am from. It's a place that doesn't have anything special, only a great cultural treasure which has remained thanks to the resistance and the love that the people who live there have for their traditions. It's a place with several Afro-descendant communities who are invested in preserving their traditions, which are not only musical, but also spiritual and linguistic too, because there are words, dialects, such as what is called pororo, to be specific, and also in clothing and gastronomy. It's a place with nothing special, but with a great cultural treasure.
And what resistance are you referring to in the lyrics?
A la resistencia gracias a la cual estamos vivos.
To the resistance thanks to which we are alive, thanks to which we live. That's why I talk so much about resistance, because sometimes I sit down and think, the fact that you and I are here, it's almost like a miracle, because there had to be rebellion so that you and I could be here. There had to be suffering, deception too, boycotts, escapes, and things that, thanks to that resistance, we no longer have to endure. But those things, the deception, the escaping, it happened, and it had to happen so that people like you and I could live today without having to work for 24 hours a day, so that we could be people who can express themselves, who can have this conversation freely, thanks to that resistance. That is the resistance I speak of. It's the resistance that happened in Villa Mella and all around the world. And it's the same resistance that still continues today.
Sonaron los congos, sonaron los cantos y se oyeron por toda Quisqueya. Oh Villa Mella.
Sonaron los congos, sonaron los cantos y se oyeron por toda Quisqueya. Oh, Villa Mella.
The Congo sounded, the chant sounded, and you could hear them all over Quisqueya. Oh, Villa Mella.
Los Congos.
Los Congos. Okay, so there's a cofradia, which is like a religious artistic group, which is called the Cofradia of the Congos de Villa Mella. They are part of one of the Afro-descendant communities that exist in Villa Mella. And they have a musical genre that they call Congo de Villa Mella. And in that genre, there are a couple of drums. There's one called Conguito, or Little Congo, and there's one called Congo Mayor, or Main Congo. Those are the Congos I'm talking about. The Congos sounded, I say in the song, because they beat the drums with intensity.
Pasaron los años y dicen que fuiste refugio de Mella. Pasaron los años y Florinda Soriano luchó por su tierra. Pasaron los años y en los morenos todavía hay estrellas. Hasta pasaron los trenes, pero no pasó Villa Mella.
Pasaron los años y dicen que fuiste refugio de Mella. Pasaron los años y Florinda Soriano luchó por su tierra. Pasaron los años y en los morenos todavía hay estrellas. Hasta pasaron los trenes, pero no pasó Villa Mella.
Years passed and they say you were a refuge for Mella. Years passed and Florinda Soriano fought for her land. Years passes and in Los Morenos there are stars still. Even trains passed, but Villa Mella did not pass. There's a lot to unpack in these lyrics. Inka tells us that the first part of the lyrics here, quote, you were refuge for Mella, unquote, refers to the fact that the hills of Villa Mella, so people say, served as a refuge for Ramon Matias Mella, one of the founding fathers of the Dominican Republic, who became a fugitive of the Creole Spaniard regime due to his ideals and pro-independence actions. How about Florinda Soriano? Who was she?
Florinda Soriano,
Florinda Soriano, better known as Mama Tingo, is an icon of Villa Mella and of the Dominican Republic. She's a symbol of the fight of the small farmers and the fight of black people. She was a woman who led a movement against a large landowner. In her days, they wanted to steal land from a community, not just from Florinda, but from her entire community, in a place called Yamasá, which is not in Villa Mella, but it's next to it. She was a leader of the movement, of her community, of the fight for that land, to be able to keep it, because that was the land that they used for subsistence. That was the land in which they lived and grew crops for food. Unfortunately, she was murdered fighting that cause. And it was a crime for which justice wasn't served, because the government back then wasn't at all good to the small farmers.
You also also talk about Los Morenos. What is Los Morenos?
Okay, bueno, los congos de Villa Mella son de
Okay, so the Congos de Villa Mella are from a community called Mata de los Indios. There's another community called Los Moreno de Villa Mella, and it's located in the outskirts of Villa Mella, and if you keep going a little bit, you arrive to Yamasá. Los Moreno is an incredible community. I'm very grateful to this community because without me being from there, I only have an uncle and a couple of cousins there. They have opened me the doors as if I was part of the community. And there, you can also find traditions that are preserved. They have their patron saints festivities for their Virgin, called La Dolorita, La Virgen de los Dolores. They play their genres, they also play Congo, just like the Congos de Villa Mella. I would say it's a community that it's a family, because that work to preserve tradition is based on the work of several families who are somewhat related. It's like that in rural areas here. Everyone is a cousin. And if we're not first cousins, maybe we're cousins of a cousin and you're the cousin of my cousin, you know. So that's why I say it's a community that it's a family. It's a tight familial community with a lot of talent.
Villa Mella, vamos a su party de palo, que la globalization se nos fue de la mano. Vamos a su party de palo, para reconocer a nuestro lado africano. Ve pa' tu party de palo, y olvida que te enseñaron que soy malo. Ve pa' tu party de palo, palo, ve pa' tu party de palo.
Vamos a hacer un party de palo, que la globalization se nos fue de la mano. Vamos a hacer un party de palo para reconocer a nuestro lado africano. Ven pa' tu party de palo y olvida que te enseñaron que eso es malo. Ven pa' tu party de palo. Ven pa' tu party de palo.
Let's make a palo party, because globalization got out of hand. Let's make a palo party to recognize our African side. Come over to your palo party and forget that they taught you that it was something bad. Come over to your palo party. So, what's a party de palo?
Bueno, nunca.
Well, first of all, we never ever call it Party de Palo. That was just something I made up. What we call it is Fiesta de Palo. Here they call Fiesta de Palo to activities like the ones I mentioned before, such as the patron saint celebrations of the Dolorita, where they play palo music. And palo music is the music that has drums, but which is not merengue or bachata or salsa. It consists of other musical genres played here in the Dominican Republic that are more centered on black people, because the other rhythms had more influence from Hispanic culture and from European culture in general and global.
And what would we find at a fiesta de palo?
En una fiesta de palo, mucho palo.
In a fiesta de palo, you ask? Well, you find a lot of palo. Check it out. They call it palo because of how the drums are made. There's a gentleman, a luthier, who goes to the mountains. Of course, there's a lot of vegetation and trees in the mountains, and here in the Dominican Republic, we call trees palos. So this gentleman cuts the trunk of a tree, picks up this palo, takes it home. Who knows, he may be walking a kilometer with the palo on his shoulder, or on a wheelbarrow, or in a truck. I don't know, it depends on who the gentleman is. Then he sands the palo, he puts something on it to protect it against woodworms, to prevent it from rotting, then he gives it shape. He makes it hollow, if it's a drum that's supposed to be hollow. Then he gets goat skin and nails the skin to the palo. And that skin will become the skin of the drum. If it's supposed to be tied, he ties the skin. If it's supposed to be nailed, he nails the skin. And this person spent all of that process with this palo that later becomes a drum. But at the beginning, in its conception, it was a palo, a tree, a piece of wood. That's why we call drums palos. And there is also a musical genre that people call palo here in the Dominican Republic. Well, more precisely, different genres of music that people call palo. But they have different styles. For instance, the palos de San Juan and the palos de Alto Mayor. There's also instruments called palo. For instance, some people call a certain drum palo alto. Palo cañuto is another genre that people play. I've heard this rhythm being played in Los Moreno.
You also invite us to recognize our African side. Why do you think this is important specifically for the Dominican Republic, but also in Latin America as a whole?
Creo que es importante.
I think it's important because in my experience, and in the experience of a lot of people, it's something that they deny to you, something that they make you feel shame about, or that they make you think that it's something bad during your entire life. So I say, let's go. Let's go to a Party de Palo to recognize our African side. Because me and a number of my friends, we want to make that connection, you know? Many of us maybe grew up, not in my case, but many of us grew up thinking that the things that were related to black culture were ugly. That hair like mine is ugly, that my nose is very big and ugly, that my lips are ugly. But sometimes art has the power to make political things, because these things are political, easier to digest. And also art has the power to unite us, despite our political differences. So that's why in this song, I'm inviting people to a Party de Palo, to unite and connect with our black essence.
Evaristo, el orgullo de los morenos, rómpeme esos cueros. Un, dos, tres.
Evaristo, el orgullo de los morenos. Rómpeme esos cueros.
Evaristo, the pride of los Moreno. Break them drums.
Evaristo Moreno. Ese pana mío.
Evaristo Moreno. That's a dear friend of mine. Evaristo is the one who executes the percussion throughout the song. Initially, this song was just a bass. It had the sounds that we usually use in rap, including the kick, the snare. We use these sounds in rap, in trap, in reggaeton too. It had that, and it had a bass sound too. And a couple of samples that I took from a singer who does Salve de Villa Mella. Her name is Enerolisa Núñez. I took the samples to put them together with the bass sound, and I had them and I showed them to Evaristo as an example. Then in the studio, this studio right here actually, thanks to Melomano, who is my friend and does music too, and has this studio called Obsidiana Studios, we were able to record here, and Evaristo recorded all the percussion instruments, tambourines and scraper for the song. Both his community, Los Moreno, and his family, the Moreno family, are very proud of him because he's part of the lineage of the founders of the community. And that's why the community has that name. It's something beautiful. Can you imagine having an Inka neighborhood because you founded it? Or maybe an Inca neighborhood? Los Moreno is like that. His community is proud of Evaristo because he has spent his whole life playing music. His music, and also mixing it with other artists from the city, from the capital, from other places in the country, with jazz, with rock, with electronic music, and in this case, with me, who dare to come to him to mix it with rap, with dembow, with reggaeton. So that's why his community is so proud of Evaristo, and I'm not the only one who says it.
Hey. Seguimos. Vamos con el pri ahora. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Ey, seguimos. Vamos con el pri ahora.
Hey, should we keep going? Let's go with the pri now.
El pri. Bueno,
The pri. Well, what's happening here is the following. The first genre that sounds in the single Party de Palo is Salve de Villa Mella, but then it moves into pri. There's a pause, and then it goes into pri. Pri is another genre that is played with accordion, although in this song we are not playing it with accordion. But yeah, it's just another genre. It has its own dance, its own history, its own rhythm, and is played with guira or scraper, balsie drum, and accordion. It's the only rhythm from the ones that I've seen played in Villa Mella and in Los Moreno that has accordion.
Mira cómo se te está moviendo el pie, ritmo caribeño que viene en tu genes. No le tengas miedo, déjalo correr. Tira par de paso, yo sé que tú quieres.
Mira cómo se te está moviendo el pie, ritmo caribeño que viene en tu genes. No le tengas miedo, déjalo correr. Tira un par de pasos, yo sé que tú quieres.
Look how your foot is moving. Caribbean rhythm that you carry in your jeans. Don't be afraid. Let it flow. Break a couple of dance steps. I know you want to. Here you seem to be pointing at how irresistible it is for the body to move when Caribbean rhythms sound. Where does this irresistibility of movement come from, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, it's great that it's irresistible, because as I was saying before, that's why music unites us. It doesn't matter what we believe, what we think, or what our ideals are. If you listen to that rhythm, you are going to move at least your feet, at least your eyelashes. I don't know. Something is going to start moving in your body. And I think it just is. I wouldn't try to find an explanation for it or a history for it. I think simply, as the song says, it comes with us. I don't know if in our genes, in the song I say it's in the genes, but I don't know that. Maybe it's in the genes, in our soul, somewhere in ourselves, we have that connection with the rhythm.
Está potente, que retumba. Está potente, que retumba. No lo sientes, se te unta. Que está potente, que retumba. Está potente.
Está potente, que retumba. No lo sientes, se te unta, que está potente, que retumba.
It's powerful. It rumbles. Don't you feel it? It spreads over you. It's powerful. It rumbles. In the song, you write, quote, "It spreads over you. It's powerful," end quote. So I wanted to ask, what rhythms are spreading over you these days?
What rhythms are spreading over me? Well, these days I'm really into merengue, which is one of the popular genres from here, from the Dominican Republic. And it has a lot of rhythm also. And of course, reggaeton is always part of my day to day. Also dembow, which every day that passes it catches more and more fire. This genre, which is producing big hits all around the world, and also from here, from the Dominican Republic. It also is the subject of controversy. Those are the rhythms that are spreading over me. And with this song, I want the pri pri and the salve de Villa Mella rhythms to spread over you.
Hey, gracias a toda la gente que está aquí. Esto es para tripearse. Villa Mella, el álbum. La gente de la finca activa todo el tiempo. Ahora que esto empieza, ustedes verán que lo que. Párame la música. Apagan todo. Que lo que vamos a aprender somos nosotros ahora.
Hey, gracias a toda la gente que está aquí. Esto es para tripearse. Villa Mella, el álbum. La gente de la finca activa todo el tiempo. Ahora que esto empieza, ustedes verán que lo que. Párame la música. Apaguen todo. Que lo que vamos a aprender somos nosotros ahora.
Hey, thank you to everyone who's here, to this trip. Villa Mella, the album. The people of La Finca, always active. It's now that this is starting. You gonna see what's good. Stop the music. Turn everything off. Everything off. I think it's us who are going to light it up now.
La gente de la finca.
The people from La Finca. Shout out to my people from La Finca. La Finca is like my support group. It's a group of people that are always there, paying attention to the art that I produce. There are also other artists in La Finca who share their art with the people from the group, and we are like a small community that grows as time passes.
I don't know about you, but as Inka says, I also find the black-rooted rhythms from the Caribbean to be very contagious. So I'm curious about what Inka's upcoming album is going to bring. What can you tell us, Inka?
This album is an effort to combine urban music with the genres that use drums in the Dominican Republic. This album is an act of daring by a young man who, when he would listen to Palo music, they would tell him, "That's bad, that's witchcraft, that's diabolical." And that young man decided to get to know that music by himself, beyond the prejudices. And then he discovered a great treasure in that music, and he combined what he knew, which is rap, because I'm a rapper, of freestyle battles and that kind of thing, with that music. It is an act of daring, of me approaching the forbidden, but in this case, something forbidden that liberates you, that makes you feel full, that gives you happiness, that gives you a sense of identity, that makes you feel part of.
And how did you come to create this album at this stage in your career?
This album is a dream that started in 2019 and that developed through the pandemic. During the pandemic, I would sit on my computer and search about the music from Villa Mella. And it was a time of my life, or it has been a time of my life, in which I've been on a quest to find what my roots are, what my origins are, why they told me what they told me, why is society the way it is. It has a lot to do with the fact that I studied social sciences in college, and there we looked at history from a point of view that's a little deeper and anti-colonial a little. And I started asking myself questions that later transformed into a desire for connection, a desire to reconnect. And that is what I want, to keep traveling through my music towards my identity, to develop my own identity, which is for me something that you develop every day. We are always changing. And to travel together with the people that listen to my music, people who give me comments, who talk about my music, people who tell me I like such and such of your songs, I like those lyrics, what you said, for instance, the beautiful people from Colombia. Wow, I loved it. And it's that, to travel together towards our identity, towards our roots, towards a part that is more us from ourselves.
And finally, we can't let you go without first asking you to rap a little bit of Party de Palo to our audience. Do you mind?
Ok. Vamos a hacer un party de palo, que la globalización se nos fue de la mano. Vamos a hacer un party de palo para reconocer a nuestro lado africano. Ven pa' tu party de palo y olvida que te enseñaron que son malos. Ven pa' tu party de palo, palo. Ven pa' tu party de palo.
Inka, thank you so much for reaching out to the Mixtape Podcast to put your new work in our radar. And thank you for helping us with the production of this episode. We appreciate you so much. And to our audience, thank you for being here with us today. I'm your host, Mel, and if you weren't listening, now you are.
Ritmo caribeño que viene en tu gene. No le tenga miedo, déjalo correr. Tira par de paso, yo sé que tú quieres. Mira cómo se te está moviendo el pie. Ritmo caribeño que viene en tu gene. No le tenga miedo, déjalo correr.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To hear today's song or other songs featured on our Were You Listening series, check out the Were You Listening playlist, which can be found at our website, tarheels.live/mixtapepodcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at themixedtapepodcast, as well as Twitter and YouTube, which are easily accessed through our website. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for our posts. Thanks for listening. This is Mixtape.
Villa Mella, el álbum. La gente de la finca activa todo el tiempo. Ahora que tú empiezas, te verán que lo que. Párame la música. Apagan todo. Que lo que vamos a aprender somos nosotros ahora.